Welcome to The Explainer. So, have you ever wondered what actually fuels the economy? Pushing it forward year after year? It turns out it's not just one single engine driving the whole machine. There are actually two very different types of investment at work here, and understanding how they interact with each other is absolutely crucial to grasping how our entire macroeconomic system functions. Today, we're unpacking the really fascinating relationship between induced investment and autonomous investment.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the engine of aggregate demand, meet the income reactor, and then meet the baseline catalyst. After that, we'll put them side by side, weigh profit against public welfare, and finally talk about shifting the baseline. Let's get right into it.
Starting off with Section 1, the engine of aggregate demand.
To really understand these two types of investment, we first need to take a step back and look at the big picture, which is aggregate demand. Basically, this is the total amount of goods and services demanded in the economy. The formula for aggregate expenditure is C plus I plus G plus X minus M. That represents household consumption, investment expenditure, government spending, and net exports. Now, while every single piece of this equation obviously matters, today we are zeroing in purely on that I, investment expenditure. But the thing is, I is not just a monolith. It behaves in two wildly different ways.
Moving right along to Section 2, meet the income reactor.
And that brings us to our first character. I actually like to think of this as the highly reactive side of the economy. The technical term here is induced investment. As our source material highlights, induced investment varies directly with changes in the level of income. This means it is extremely sensitive to how much money is currently flowing through the economy at any given time. If the economy is booming and national income is high, well, this type of investment fires up. But if national income drops, this investment pulls back immediately.
So, the crucial point to take away here is that this investment is income elastic. Because it's income elastic, it stretches, shrinks, and reacts almost like a giant economic rubber band as national income fluctuates. It is entirely dependent on the current economic weather. If you were to map this relationship out, you'd always see a positive upward slope. Why? Simply because there's a positive functional relationship between income and investment. Imagine national income scaling up from OY1 to OY2. Induced investment reacts instantly, expanding right along with it from A1Y1 to A2Y2. The more income there is, the more induced investment happens. It is a direct, aggressive climb.
All right, Section 3, meet the baseline catalyst.
Now we pivot from that reactive engine to the steadfast foundation of our economy. Notice the stark contrast here. Autonomous investment is income inelastic. It is entirely independent of current income changes. It simply does not care if national income is currently at OY1 or OY2. It happens regardless.
Because it flat out ignores current income fluctuations, autonomous investment behaves like a flat, horizontal line that is perfectly parallel to the x-axis. It stays perfectly uniform across all income steps, anchoring the economy much like a heavy anvil just holding steady right through a storm.
Which brings us to Section 4, side by side, fueling growth.
Let's bring our two characters together, because this is where the magic of macroeconomics really becomes visible. On one hand, we have induced investment. It's the income reactor, income elastic, scaling energetically upward with a positive slope as national income rises. On the other hand, we have autonomous investment. It's the baseline catalyst, income inelastic, remaining a flat, unwavering horizontal curve regardless of what the national income is doing. Two completely opposite behavioral responses playing out at the exact same time.
But this raises a genuinely fascinating question. If autonomous investment entirely ignores income and just stays perfectly flat, what actually triggers it? Why does anyone spend that massive amount of money if they aren't reacting to current economic prosperity?
Let's answer that in Section 5, profit versus public welfare.
To figure out the why, we have to look at the distinct motives driving each side. Induced investment is typical of private investment. It is motivated solely by profit. Private entrepreneurs look at rising incomes, see a chance to make a profit, and they invest in things like plants, machinery, and inventory. Autonomous investment, however, is typical of public investment. It is undertaken by the government and is largely motivated by public welfare rather than immediate profit.
When we say public welfare, we are talking about massive foundational projects. We mean roads, dams, schools, hospitals, gas and water supplies. A government decides to build a new hospital because society needs it, totally ignoring the current fluctuations in national income.
They don't wait for national income to hit some artificial peak to decide a town needs clean drinking water, right? That is exactly why the investment curve remains completely flat and autonomous from current income.
Finally, Section 6, shifting the baseline.
So wait, does that mean autonomous investment is just a permanent, unchanging flat line forever? Well, not quite. Even though the curve behaves as a horizontal line, meaning it's constant at any given moment regardless of income, it actually doesn't always remain fixed over the very long term. That flat line can shift bodily up or down to form an entirely new baseline.
So what actually forces that entire flat line to shift? It really comes down to massive external shocks and long-term structural changes. We're talking about things like the innovation of groundbreaking new production techniques, or the discovery of new resources, or entirely new markets. Growth in population also forces a shift. More people inherently require more schools and more roads. And finally, deliberate policy choices, like a sudden, planned increase in public expenditure, will shift that baseline catalyst up to a completely new, higher horizontal level.
So, to recap, we have the reactor that chases profit and the catalyst that provides the welfare baseline. And that leaves us with a pretty provocative thought to wrap up on. In times of severe economic trouble, when incomes drop and the profit-driven income reactor of induced investment cools all the way down, is it the government's unwavering baseline catalyst of autonomous investment that ultimately steps in, shifting upward to keep the entire economic engine from just stalling out completely? It is a fundamental question of macroeconomics, and I really hope this explainer has given you the tools to think about it in a new light. Thanks so much for joining me.